Welcome, everyone, to Revenue Problem Solvers, where we crack the code on growing your business by tackling the challenges that keep revenue leaders up at night. I'm Carl Ortmans, and on today's episode, we're diving into a unique challenge that I don't know that's commonly discussed. How do I integrate and align sales and marketing teams through a merger? With me today to talk about this is Leslie Flemming. Leslie and I, funnily enough, were classmates at our alma mater, Acadia University, but she's way smarter than me. And we've recently reconnected through a bunch of business discussions. Leslie holds a JD Law degree from Dalhousie, she as well as an LLM of International Business Law from VU Amsterdam. She's worked with agencies such as Verb Interactive and M5 Marketing Communications before she landed at CloudKettle as a VP Marketing. I'm sorry, I apologize. It's Ateco, backed by Bell, if I said that correctly. So before we jump in, let's talk about why this conversation matters. Imagine just implementing one strategy from today's conversation and watching the revenue metrics shift within weeks, not months. That's exactly what our goal is of this podcast. Let's talk about revenue challenge that others have faced and how they solved it. As I like to say, success leaves clues, and we're going to highlight those clues for you. So let's solve some revenue problems. So Leslie, welcome to Revenue Problem Solvers podcast. So to kick us off, can you give us a little context about your world today?
Sure, yes. And thank you for having me. So I am VP of Marketing at CloudKettle. And last summer, CloudKettle was bought by Bell Canada. And then over the last few months, we have been merged together with a few other companies. And now we are Ateco, backed by Bell. And so what we do is technology services consulting, revenue operations, marketing operations, that type of work for companies in highly complex, highly regulated industries. So think financial services, government, health services. And our specialty at CloudKettle was Salesforce. So we live and breathe the Salesforce ecosystem, pretty much every aspect of it. But now that we've merged with these other entities into Ateco, we also have expanded our expertise. So it's Salesforce, ServiceNow, Google Cloud, AWS, and Microsoft platforms. So really just offering a wide range of expertise on the platforms that really drive businesses.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Well, the Salesforce side is close to my heart, being a former Salesforcean. That's very, very cool. Can you tell us, so you talked to us a little bit about the industries and also the verticals you work in. What are the selling motions? Can you give sort of an idea of like, what are the selling motions? What size companies do you work with? I know as you mentioned, they're going to be the highly regulated. So really
Sure.
large companies or SMB, mid-market, where does that fit?
Yeah, so we are quite focused now on those complex enterprise sales. So this is high touch, lots of stakeholders and decision makers, complex solutions, complex integrations. And so we have a sales team that's quite experienced and can speak to those complex revenue operations and marketing operations challenges, but also a strong technical team in there to support that. We have our partner network. So we are a Salesforce Summit or Platinum partner. We work closely with Salesforce. Then we also have our direct sales with our enterprise accounts. We've got our digital channels. The company size that we work with varies, but the bulk of it, I would say, is well over 1,000 employees. We're into the enterprise space of quite large, complex clients with pretty complicated regulations around them. So yeah, that's kind of our bread and butter. Some mid-market stuff, but mostly moving up market to the enterprise sales.
Nice. So enterprise means legal reviews, security reviews, lots of documentation, MSAs,
Yes,
and
yes.
all. Yes. So if
All
you're
the
listening,
paper.
all of the paperwork's all of the time. And the highly regulated industries are really interesting because you know that they have to have a very specific talk track. They have to have a very specific set of guidelines for when they bring on a new customer and ultimately how they operate. So interesting. But not to, you're not looking to talk to me today. So how we got to the topic today is I said, Leslie, what is a successful revenue initiative that you've led, or what's an existing challenge that you're solving today? And you kind of quickly were like, oh, it's this one. It's aligning sales and marketing during a merger.
Hmm.
What's that? So you've been living this for a little while now. How have you and the team gone about integrating this into one big team? Can you tell us a little bit about how this journey has gone for you and the Ateco team?
Yeah, so I will tell you, it is still an ongoing process. This is not like a one and done, oh, we've done it and we've figured it all out. But basically, yeah, we had three separate entities that have now all joined forces. And so with that, everybody had their way of doing sales, doing marketing, handling their pipeline, assigning leads, all of the basic nuts and bolts of how sales and marketing works in these three separate organizations. And now it's all coming together under one roof. And in a perfect world, we will all eventually be in one streamlined process. But that takes time, as with anything. So right now, we're really in the thick of kind of discovering exactly what everybody is doing and what has been working and what should we keep and what do we throw away and what do we create together that's like a net new process that takes the best of everybody's solutions and brings it all together in one.
Mm. This is the fun and challenging time. I'll say it this way. And the context, I don't think we've actually talked about this. I've been part of a couple of different acquisitions. So I was more on the acquisition side of acquiring companies and doing some of that. By the way, I think M&A is fascinating. It's one of the things that I enjoyed the most. However, the integration process is a challenging one, especially on the technology side when you're trying to offer a service. We have one group using Salesforce, one group using Microsoft Dynamics. What I'm just making this stuff up. One using HubSpot. We're using all these different services. Now you got to standardize and retrain everybody, etc. And so my question, I guess, maybe to start this off, when you started that integration within the planning, did you have a team that all came together from various aspects, sales, marketing, revenue operations, leadership? What did that look like?
Yeah, so a lot of it was driven out of the gate by the individual leaders of the separate companies, just having those bigger conversations of what the vision is, what it should look like, how it should work. But then when you get into the actual nuts and bolts of things, you can't just have that at a leadership level. Like you need those operational people who are executing on the daily basis to really be in the weeds on that. So there is a committee, and that team structure kind of changes as we grow and change and realize like, oh, we need to bring HR in on this one. So it's a little bit of a living and breathing creature. But certainly there is a core group of people who are responsible for making this integration happen and looking at all the places where we need to be focusing time and energy and resources to make it work.
And so on that, like making it work, because the one of the things that I found was a challenge of doing it was trying to bring the cultural differences between how companies work, right? Everybody has their own sort of cultural values, the way that they work. How have you seen that? Like, how did you get those different cultural values to get everybody aligned to one new mission? Is that complete? Is that ongoing? Is there any clues or like, hey, I should have done these things? Like, what? How did you look at that?
Yeah. So I think it will be ongoing and it'll always be evolving. We certainly we had to take a look at like who we are and what we know about ourselves, but also even before we got acquired, we knew that we were never going to be acquired by a company if their values and if what was important in their cultural was wildly different than ours. So Bell actually was quite a natural fit for us in terms of that organizational alignment and the cultural values. So that has been kind of a plus that we're not kind of trying to merge companies that are totally diametrically opposed in what we value. But one of the big things has been having those executives involved and in communication right out of the gate. So our founder and CEO has been very involved. The top levels of Bell, so the CEO of Bell, the top levels of Bell Business Markets, they have been in communication with our teams from day one, kind of establishing here's what we're doing, here's what we're building together. So having everybody hear from the top level executives has been really valuable and really important, but also making sure that the kind of regular employees, for lack of a better word, so myself, like our head of HR, the ones that the team knows and trusts, we are involved in the conversation and we are talking to people every day about what's happening and just really focus on communicating as much as we can, as often as we can, to help everybody align, because the goals and the metrics haven't really changed. It's the same goal. Like, we're trying to get bigger, we're trying to grow, and maybe the goals are now a bit more aggressive. But the standards by which we're measuring ourselves are the same.
Mm.
Now we're just doing it in this bigger organization. So we're really just focused on keeping the team in the loop, making sure that everybody has the information that we need, and making it clear that, like, we still value the culture we have, and we are looking at where we can bring the best parts of each individual organization's culture together to create this new, cultural impact across the new organization.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when you're merging, there's not one that's sort of like, "Hey, you're part of CloudKettle." It's like, no, there's CloudKettle and the others that come together. So now it's which is the one that aligns best for everybody. So that is the interesting one to see all of them dynamically come together because I have to think that it's under the parent company, which is Bell. Here's our core beliefs. Here's how we all work together, et cetera, which I
Yeah.
think is interesting. On the communication side, if I can ask this before I jump into the marketing and sales alignment stuff, um, on the communication side, did you have the teams like as an example, you mentioned ServiceNow and you mentioned Microsoft, but Cloud Kettle predominantly or historically was based on Salesforce.
Mhm.
So is there cross-functional training that happens, or do we look at an account now and we say, pick an account just for sake of simplicity, PepsiCo, just as an example. PepsiCo is an account we want to work with, but we have different people for ServiceNow, different people for CloudKettle, different people for, the other groups. Do you all come together and create one common team? Do you have cross training for people to be able to manage all aspects? How did that work? Do you have how does that work now?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is still being figured out day
Oh,
by day,
okay.
but the goal of the organization is, if you are, PepsiCo, ABCco, whatever your large entity is, we are your one-stop shop now. So you need Salesforce, but you also need Google, but you also need AWS. Like, well, good news. We have people who can do all of these things. And now, instead of having to go to this partner for this and this partner for this and this partner for the other, you have one team, one point of contact, and the experts across those platforms are going to be different people.
Mm,
But ideally, you will have your team that works on your problems and your solutions. And then that's all coming together under one umbrella to make it easier for the client to just have a techo as their
mm.
point of contact for
Which makes
all of
sense.
these solutions.
Yeah, it makes sense. Specialization is definitely a key thing because you can talk in a different level to the people, and that level of buyer what they're working on. So very cool. Okay, if we can sort of shift gears a little bit because I have a whole bunch of questions. The first question is going to be this: adjoining to a techo. What was that experience like looking at the different brands? Were you and how did you effectively align on the name Ateco? And how did that whole journey of the marketing transition? Because I noticed I liked your post on LinkedIn. Hey, Cloud Kettle is now part of Ateco. Like, how did that go? What did that journey look like?
Yeah, so it's a journey that was in the works for a long time, like, even before I was aware of it, the journey was happening. So Bell, corporate entity, had their agency that they work with, and so the name and the branding was the product of collaboration with an agency, and that's a very, very complex process when you're looking at creating a net new name and .com. So you need to look at trademarks and existing websites and social handles and places in other countries. So it's quite an undertaking to arrive on a name that won't get you sued. So that is a challenge, but I think we landed on one that so far has been working out for us. Also, where Bell is based in Montreal, and a lot of our requirements are to be in French and English. We needed a name that worked in both languages and didn't, mean something different, or wasn't going to be a challenge to translate. So the whole naming and branding process has been going on for a while, and it has had many parties involved, but there was an agency that was ultimately kind of the brains behind this new branding.
Very cool. The branding side of things is interesting because not something I would have considered ways back was you have to look at the name and then translate it into the languages in which you support. And
Mhm.
does it actually translate well?
Yeah, well, and that's a consideration. Like, you're Googling this and you're looking like, does this mean something offensive in another language? Like, we have our little like icon mark. Is that an icon that means something different, like in a different country? So these are considerations which you might not think of out of the gate, but when you're coming up with a new company, now that we're 2025, like it's very hard to get word.com as your URL. So we're also looking for something where can we get the .com for this? Because you don't really want the .net or the .org necessarily. Like you want that .com, and you want to be able to have people find you. So you need a name that they can spell, and you need a name that makes sense to people and is also somewhat related to the work that you do. So they kind of explained Ateco is like automation, technology, collaboration. You can bring those words together and create
Oh,
Ateco. And we are also, a tech company.
company.
So
Oh,
there you go.
wow. Okay, there's multiple ways.
Yeah.
Nice. That's great. And okay, so then from your view, like you're obviously leading the marketing team, and you're going to have others. What were some of the considerations that you had to pull together and say, you know what? Here's our website. Here's our demand gen funnel. Here's our workflows. How much of that changed? Who did you have to involve? Did you have to involve marketing operations? Was it more sales? Like, who did you involve from that brand shifting to go to the new brand?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely cannot really function as an organization without marketing operations. Like, that's a huge piece of the pie because you need to know what's your tech stack, what is it doing, how does it integrate with everything else, like where are your leads coming from, how are you tracking things, what are the nurtures, what are there's so many things that go into that. So lucky for us, we already have an excellent marketing automation team and marketing operations experts that we can draw on. So we've used them quite a bit as we kind of forge this new path. Salesforce is our thing. It's what we know. We know how to set up really efficient and effective revenue operations and marketing operations engines within the Salesforce platform. So that's what we are
Mhm.
leaning on as we create these new ways of doing things. But yeah, it does often just come back to talking to people, talking to the different stakeholders across the different companies. What are the salespeople doing? How does it work across these different organizations? And also taking a look at our own processes and like we know how we do it, but as soon as you have to explain to somebody, okay, well, why do you do it like that? Sometimes it gives you that opportunity to take a look and is the answer we do it like that because that's the way we set it up 4 years ago and then we just haven't gone back since then, or do we have a really good valid reason for doing it that way? So through this process, talking to everybody in the different areas, understanding what they do, but then also taking a good hard look at ourselves and looking at what we do and knowing that, maybe some of these things we could refine, we could change because we're all working towards this common goal of having an organization that runs really smoothly.
Mhm.
And that is going to take constant fine tuning. But it is a great hard reset, whether you like it or not, that when you're going through a process like this, you need to be able to figure out a way forward and you need to be able to justify it. So it does kind of set you up for better success in the future because you have good reasoning behind your whole process.
It's there's a couple of things come to mind, and if I can maybe just add to this is it there was have you ever heard the like don't ever let a good crisis go wasted or something to the effect? Have you ever heard that? So, and because why I'm where when you're talking, I only ultimately went back to when I've had to make changes to platforms and such and look at workflows, my question is, does this make sense?
Mhm.
Right? Like, so you create literally a workflow. Does this make sense for today? Well, actually, there's 75 different steps within the side workflow. Oh, this one goes to a form that we don't use anymore. Why did we ever use that form? Did anybody shut it off? Oh, did we know that there's leads sitting over there? It allows you to look at it and be like, oh, did did we forget about that one? It's interesting to sort of look under the I don't know if you experienced that at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like even we've just now, so we still retain cloudkettle.com, but we're moving everything to ateco.com. And so we've been doing an audit of everything on our site, including our blogs, and then working with our SEO team and our dev team. I've received this list of like, here's all of the tags. Why are these all here? And I don't know. Some of them have just been there since before I ever worked here, and I never went in to clean them up. So it's a good exercise in like you are forced to take a good hard look at your house and get
Yeah.
it in order. So that, yeah, we are not wasting this opportunity to clean things up and to move things over in a way that now makes sense for what we're doing.
Makes total s and the other it makes total sense. The other thing that comes to mind is there was a revenue operations leader that I worked with early on. He said, "If you ever wanna know how something's working, just turn it off and see who complains."
Yeah, that's good.
So I don't know if you ever if you've had to go through this, be like, "Look, we've been using this technology. The person that implemented it is maybe no longer here. There's no documentation." Did you have to turn anything off and be like, "Okay, fingers crossed, nothing breaks?"
We've had like some migrational things like related to the website where, yeah, we might have to switch things off for a bit or do a few little updates. But being a technology services company and like marketing operations and revenue operations is what we do. So
Right.
the plan for this has been fairly bulletproof, as we do have some of like the best experts in the world who work for us. So we don't have a great excuse if
Mm.
things go wrong. We can't really say, oh, well, we didn't know. It's not our area of expertise. Like, no, this is what we do. So we better get this one right.
What better way it just sort of dawned on me, what better way for a techo and effectively CloudKettle at the same time to look at their customers and go, "By the way, we got this. Do you know how much we got this? We
Yeah.
just did this thing, and we had these 3 minor blips that happened because of whatever," and you can explain it. Like, you have your own internal case study to tell the world. That's unbelievable. It just dawned on me now.
Yeah, no, we do. We're not like fully through it, so I don't have, the hard numbers that we can share yet, but when this is, a year, 2 years from now, we can look back and say like, "Oh, here's what went well, here's where we went slightly off the rails, but we pulled it together." It'll be great to look back at that and know that, yeah, we mean we did it ourselves because it's what we do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if we can maybe shift a little bit to like the next one is sort of the alignment and then metrics, etc. If we can sort of shift there because I think there's a natural question in here. And the question is the first one is once you went to the Ateco side, what did you have a lot of documentation or training with the sales team? How did you get the sales and marketing teams together to talk and say, by the way, here's what this looks like? What does the training look like? How did you all approach that integration even within your own teams, but migrating to the new set of metrics and guidelines?
Yeah, so we are lucky in the sense that as a Bell Canada company, we also have access to the sales teams for Bell.
Mm,
So there's an element of like sales education there where they have a pretty, it's Bell, so they're a huge organization. They've got a pretty solid sales training methodology, and there's lots of resources and ways for us to tap in to that to share what we do. And it's something new, so people are excited and incentivized to sell and push these services that we have now. The sales support creation, that's an ongoing discussion and figuring out what do you need to be able to sell this. Like, we do not want to inundate you with the finer points of everything Salesforce can do. We want to give you, here's the 5 or 10 key things that might let you open the door to a conversation, and then hand it over and we'll let our experts take it from there. But in such a large organization where there are so many people who have the ability to sell and have the ability to influence the sale, we are trying to pull together the materials that are allowing you to do the most with like being overwhelmed the least with all the information that's available, because it's a lot. There's a ton of platforms. They can
Right.
all do a lot of different things. So what are the key conversations that you need to have to start that sales motion?
Right. And it sounds well, tell me if I'm way off, but it sounds like CloudKettle's operating just like they typically would with all the Salesforce leads. And then the different groups are, there's specialized areas.
Mhm.
But then I have to think that there's some level of cross-pollination going, hey, I'm now working with ABC Co. and I know that they use ServiceNow, but they're also going to use Salesforce. I'm going to pull that person over. Is that sort of the alignment that's happening right now from the simplistic side?
Yeah, like we're still pretty early stages in like the actual merger of these sales processes. So right now they are still fairly siloed. We do have clients where they do use all of the services. So they use Salesforce, they use ServiceNow, and maybe they're on Google, or they have like an AWS component. So figuring out that team dynamic of, hey, we all work on this same client is kind of ongoing and is going to be a case by case situation to assess. But yeah, like in the perfect world, you don't have many different teams
Mhm.
that a client has to deal with. They have their, one point of contact that can speak to all the different things that are going on within that client and that organization. But yeah, we're still kind of figuring that out because there's a lot to consider, a lot of people involved, and you also want to be aware of, like, you don't want to step on toes, you don't want to um, interfere with client relationships that may have existed for years and years and years. So figuring out the political side of that is interesting too.
I can imagine there's lots of these tools out there that, hey, we'll connect databases and you'll get to see what shared customers, like you have your own internal effectively now. Hey, whoever's on the different groups inside of a Techo now. Hey, you're the ServiceNow group. Hey, by the way, we want to get into this customer. We know that uses ServiceNow. Do you know them? And I have to believe that there's some cross lead sharing, or hey, let's go into this with one unified message from a customer perspective and say, hey, look, we now have access to things you never had before, and by the way, this person's pretty awesome. You should probably
Yeah.
bring them into the conversation. So are you bringing are the is the goal to bring teams together in that respect to march it forward then?
Yeah, well, I think just the backed by Bell element does open a lot of doors for us, because as CloudKettle, we are experts, we are highly knowledgeable, but unless you're in a very like small part of the Salesforce world, you might not know our name.
Right.
But as Bell, most people are familiar. So when Bell asks to set up a meeting, most people are open to take that meeting. So we still have to prove we know what we know, and we've got the chops, and we can show up and get the work done. But certainly by having this backing of this much larger organization that's very well known, that's a multi-billion dollar corporation, it opens doors for us and it
Mhm.
lets us into the conversations that we might not have been able to participate in before. So it's an exciting development in that way.
Yeah, makes sense. As part of your journey through this, has there been something that you're like the most, and I'm sort of shifting towards the end here. Hey, this one thing has been the most challenging aspect that I never considered going through the merger. Is there something that comes to mind for you as going through this? You're like, by the way, this one thing. Oh, is there a
Um, Yeah, and I think it's the human element and the emotions of everything. Like Cloud Kettle has a strong brand. We have our kettle, like we have our t-shirts, we have the way that we communicate and our social posts and our online presence. And it's different. It's very different from the Ateco brand. And so one of the most challenging things in the merger were people's feelings of, are we
Mm,
losing the kettle? Do we not have kettles on things anymore? And
Oh.
no, like, no, we don't, not anymore. Like we're a techo now. So I think the one thing that's maybe really easy to overlook in this process is that if you have a good, strong brand, your employees might be really attached to that. And that it is a delicate operation to be excited about the new brand and this new kind of like path forward that we have, but also acknowledging like we got to put this other baby to bed. Like we love this kettle and we love our brand, but now we're moving on to the next thing. So we still want to retain our culture, but we still want to be who we are and have our same approach to business and our same, love and value for our teammates. But it's funny how, something is as little as a kettle is actually something that people became quite attached to. So that would be the one thing that I would have taken
Huh.
away as kind of surprise in all of this, is that our team really really loved our brand. And so we want to make sure that as we move into this new brand, we're giving them just as much to love in the new Ateco way forward. And I think there's some exciting things, and I think there's a lot that we can do and things that we can draw from in the cloud from the Cloud Kettle brand that we can carry over. So that would be, yeah, that would be the surprise.
That's interesting. And there's probably people that were there longer because I think the tenure at CloudKettle is pretty strong, right? So you've had people that have been there for more than a couple of years, so they're probably attached to that branding.
Yeah, like we release a t-shirt every year. And so some people have, 9, 10 t-shirts. And now they're going to be new t-shirts and they're going to be something cool and different. But yeah, so we were about 10 years old when we got acquired. So the longest tenured employees have been there for
Yeah.
8 or 9 years.
Wow. Uh, The branding. Yeah, that's the human side. That's an interesting one. I see. I was anticipating like there's this level of the connection point from this system to this system, or
I
trying
mean,
to.
that's hard too. There's definitely technical challenges, but I think the people challenge, in anything is going to
Yeah.
be something that you can't discount. Like you could have the most perfect technical plan, but if you failed to take into account your employees who are humans with feelings and opinions on things, you might not be as successful as you think.
It's a great point there. So if I ask the last question, I typically say everybody likes new, nobody likes different, and when you do both at the same time, it can create friction or uncertainty. So in the notion of, hey, the kettle is going away, our branding is changing. How did you all go about managing that change internally?
So the the main approach, and really I think like the only approach in this situation, is just communication, communication, over communicate, tell them again, tell them the next day, tell them in a different language, like just be in touch and as open and as candid as you can with your team. Transparency was always a big part of Cloud Kettle, and sharing details that maybe a lot of companies didn't share with their employees. We were very, very transparent with all of our team. And so we know that it's important to keep people in the loop because it's very easy for people to feel excluded or feel like something's going wrong if they don't know exactly what is happening.
Mm.
So, trying just to communicate as much as we can, as often as we can, through email, through Slack, through team meetings, through town halls, like all of the ways, really focusing on that. And then just knowing, regardless of the name of the company, regardless of the kettle or the .com, who are we, what are we good at, and like what's our north star, because we as the team are the same. So
Mhm.
whatever label you put on it or whatever brand colors you have, the team is still the team. And bringing people back to that point of like, we are not changing. The wrapping has changed, but the team and the work has not changed. So
Mm.
let's focus on that and then figure out how we can join with this new larger team and present the best possible solutions for our clients.
Bringing it back to the why. why we do the things we do, how do we do it, right? Seems like that's where it is. Very cool. Okay, so let's if you're okay with let's wrap up the conversation today. So if as somebody who's listening to this, if you were to give them advice and said, "Hey Leslie, I'm about to go through a merger. I need to align sales and marketing." What are the two or three sort of actionable operational things you can say, "Hey, look at X, Y, and Z or A, B, and C, one, two, three, whatever they are." What are those three things you would tell others in a similar position to look for in preparation for the merger for success?
I would say make sure that very early on you get time on the schedules of whoever your sales and marketing leaders are. And maybe not even the leaders necessarily, but the people who are in the trenches of sales and marketing. What are they doing every day? What's important to them? Like what pays their bills? What keeps them fed? Because
Mhm.
those are the things that are going to really have an impact on your organization. Um, and sometimes the vision and the big picture might not match the day-to-day reality. So just trying to make sure that you have input from people at different levels so that you can take that information and make your plan based on what is true and what you have the data to back up. So yeah, talking to people, getting the real details, and then yeah, just communicating as much as you can and making sure that you have a team in place who also are trying to forge this path with you and that you have a plan of attack.
Hmm. And if I maybe add one more, because it seemed like it was have a really good technology plan and look at all of your systems and documents is sort of one of the things that I would take away from today too.
Yes, that would
Mm,
definitely be, that's definitely important if you're going to have a marketing revenue operations plan to make sure that it's pretty bulletproof and that you have the right people involved to vet it and make sure that's going to work for you.
nice. Awesome. Well, thank you for today. Where could people find you if they wanted to talk to you a little bit more? Where's the best way to find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Leslie Flemming, and then we are CloudKettle on LinkedIn as well. And Ateco is on LinkedIn, starting to move some of our content over to that side of things. We will still be available as CloudKettle for probably the next quarter, maybe until the end of the year. And then we'll be migrating everything over to Ateco. So ateco.com or LinkedIn or YouTube, you can find us there.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for today, and that will wrap up another episode of Revenue Problem Solvers. I want to thank Leslie for sharing these invaluable insights today, strategies that you can put into action immediately if you are going through a merger. If you found value in today's conversation, please like the episode, subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to, so you never miss an episode. But if you have feedback on how this could be better, or if there's a topic that you'd like to talk about, or even be a guest, let me know. Let's talk. Thank you for investing your time today. Remember, success leaves clues, and every revenue problem has a solution. Sometimes you just need the right conversation to find it. Until next time, it's Carl with Revenue Problem Solvers, helping you turn obstacles into opportunity. Thanks for everyone.